In 1969, a group of astronauts changed the world. They ride the biggest rocket ever built to the moon. It's the culmination of more than 10 years of space pioneering and the foundation for more than 4 decades of exploring worlds beyond our own. This is the story of our greatest adventure.